This is from a father of several children. It beautifully illustrates loving and teaching and some need to modify the loving and teaching in a daily practical situation, which is really useful for all of us. He said, most mornings, my wife, Marie, gets the kids dressed and then I drive them to daycare. Very routine, very little variance. But this morning, Brian, the 4-year-old, was just out of sorts. They do that. He was whiny and slow getting ready and complaining that he didn't want to go to preschool. Now, a couple of things to understand about 4-year-olds, because the approach that you take with a 4-year-old isn't the same as you take with a 14-year-old. One, reasoning with a 4-year-old is a really iffy proposition. You take your risks when you do that. It's often kind of stupid, actually, to even try. It usually leads to an argument, and you really won't win. Because, see, the 4-year-old is a master of 4-year-old language and lack of reasoning or twisted reasoning. You're not. 2, sometimes they're just sick or they didn't sleep well. You really have to get a feel for this one, whether they're well, or you can screw things up badly. If you pour consequences all over the head of a sick or tired 4-year-old, you're very likely not going to like how things go. So, just as a start, you can't analyze a film to see if they slept, but check the kid's temperature. It's such an easy thing. The kid has 102.8 temperature, you go, all bets are off, no reasoning is going to work. No consequences are going to work either. 3, if his being out of sorts is an exception to the normal routine, something is just off, maybe illness, maybe not. As parents, we must understand whether a particular unproductive behavior from a child is an exception or is the norm. If it's the norm, being out of sorts, loving and teaching and using consequences must be employed all the way. If it's an exception, mostly love and support will do it. Now, continuing with number 3. So, let's say I have a child who consistently does not take out the garbage. Love and teach over and over and over. And then, if that doesn't work, consequences, like the child sleeps outside one night in the garbage area or next to the garbage can, makes a tent out of a tarp and the garbage can. They tend to remember to take the garbage out after that. You take the garbage and calmly, you can't do it with glee, you can't do it with anger. You simply take the contents of the garbage that they did not empty, the family trash can, or as they say in England, bin, and you just dump it all over his bed. They tend to remember that because they don't like that. Lots of things you can do. You can add other chores. He can do 2 or 3 of the other kids' chores or chores of yours. But if they usually do take out the garbage, 8 to 9 times out of 10 they do, consequences might be a little severe. And so you just simply say that with a gesture, with a look. You just look at him and go, which means, well, they'll think for a second. Usually they'll go, oh, I didn't take out the garbage. You don't even have to say anything. But if that doesn't do it, you just calmly point in the direction of the can and say, garbage. That's what you do if taking out the garbage is a pattern for the child. There's no reason to go through all the teaching and consequences if they've got the pattern. That's the point. So back to this kid with an attitude waking up. If that's an exception, you just say, hey, you, come here. You touch him. Look in his eyes. Would you like to be happier? That often makes a difference because they're reminded of conversations you've had about being happy or sad, black and white, choice. and you will have had these conversations at family meetings. Or you just touch him more and possibly help a little more getting ready for school, but only if it's a true exception. In other words, normally he does just sort of get ready for school and there's no fussing. If it's not an exception, if this is his usual behavior to fuss and carry on and go slowly, and you help more, then you're enabling and training the child to have an attitude, because then he learns, I have an attitude, Dad helps more. Not a good lesson to learn. Hugely important to get this, and that's really why we're having this particular answer, is because the response really depends on whether the child's unacceptable behavior or unproductive behavior is an exception or the rule. It matters a lot. There's one thing 4-year-olds do better than adults, at least one. They live in the present. Now, that's great when it comes to enjoying life, but it stinks when it comes to delayed consequences. With a 14-year-old, you can say, if you don't take out the garbage, then you'll miss the sophomore prom at school. Yeah, they get that, and they find that very alarming. But at 4, he will not learn anything from a consequence that follows his unacceptable behavior by more than a few seconds. I had a friend, and he got a dog, and when his dog would pee on the floor, he'd come home from work and the dog peed on the floor hours ago, and then he would just beat the trash out of this dog. Well, the dog's going, man gets home, man beats me for no reason, conclusion, crazy man. And the dog becomes increasingly distant from the man. The dog does not understand the association between the urine on the floor downstairs that he deposited hours ago and this beating. Doesn't get it. In order to give children a reason to choose more wisely, there needs to be a consequence following a poor choice. It's usually mostly true with older kids too, but especially with younger ones. That is immediate and unpleasant. So it's a really simple lesson that they learn. Bad choice followed by unpleasant consequence. Good choice, better consequence. That's how it kind of works in real life. If there were no laws and you consistently ran stoplights, you'd be dead. Your car would be totaled, whatever the consequence. It's immediate. Or you get pulled over immediately. They don't pull you over 2 weeks later. This 4-year-old cannot factor in a consequence that will come much later. Can't do it. So when parents say things to a child like, okay, well, you're going to miss out on your treat after dinner. The 4-year-old's going, after dinner. Never going to happen. Learns nothing. So what are some immediate consequences in the morning while preparing to leave and you're in a hurry? First, this is you. This is something you have to change. You have to eliminate the hurry. You put the child to bed earlier. You get up earlier. If a child, I hear this almost every day from a parent somewhere, my child is consistently 15 to 20 minutes late getting ready for school. And I'm thinking, this isn't brain surgery. Go to bed 15 to 20 minutes earlier and get up earlier. People who say, well, I'm always late to the airport. I'm not, because I leave 2 hours before I need to leave, and then accidents, whatever, don't care. So you've got to do your job, giving time for the child to completely sleep, time for family meetings, time for consequences, time for the kid to prepare for school. And it turns out, if you give the child simply enough time to sleep, they tend not to get up with that grouchy thing. So potential consequences, if you have provided the time. If you haven't, you kind of did it to yourself. Examples. The child is fussing around and it's time to go. And you say, we're going, we're out the door. And the kid says, well, where's my breakfast? And you go, oh, well, if you wanted breakfast, you would have eaten it before now. So maybe next time you'll remember. That's an immediate consequence. They go to school having not eaten breakfast. And no, they won't die from missing breakfast. Maybe you can give him a banana to eat at break. I don't know, but not a full breakfast that he carts along in a lunchbox. Another example, if he's delaying, he gets to go to school. He's not ready. He's in his pajamas. It's time to go. He goes to school in his pajamas. He'll live. Or you say, if you're not all dressed in time to go to school, then I will choose your clothes and you'll put them on in the car. So you get his sister's dress and you send him to school in that. He's not going to like that all that much. He's going to be teased all day long, and he's going to remember, I'm not going to wait till the last minute. The consequence is immediate and unpleasant. Now, there's some people who would say, oh, you're torturing your poor child. Oh, these are the parents who raise enabled and entitled children. Another consequence, get a box and start loading his favorite toys into the box, telling him that you're going to be putting it away where he can't find them and can't use them. And you keep loading the toys, and you say, I'm going to keep loading the toys, even if it's all of them, until you change that snotty attitude. 4 years old, they get it. They know when they're being snotty, especially when it's pointed out to them. These are just some of the consequences you can use. Get creative, but it has to be immediate and unpleasant. Dad says, so we did make a kind of breakfast, put it in a paper bag, not a bad idea, and took it with us to daycare. Once we got there, he refuses to get out of the car. He's still whining and more. Remember, we talked about immediate consequences? That's why he's still whining, because you didn't really give him an immediate consequence. In fact, you enabled him by preparing his breakfast and putting it in a bag so he could take it with him. So he's going, cool. The worse my attitude, the more people serve me. Dad continues. I tell him that now he will have an earlier bedtime, and of course, he gets worse. Again, the consequence isn't immediate. The kid knows it's unpleasant in some way, but all he feels is punished. He's going, I'm going to have an earlier bedtime. Bedtime is next year to this 4-year-old. Immediate consequences. Right then or he won't learn. It's how you train a dog. No, I'm not telling you your children are dogs. But in the beginning, you very much train them like one. When you take a dog for a walk, you give them immediate consequences. Dog trainers use choke chains. If the dog goes away from you, from the path you're following, the chain immediately tightens up, chokes the dog negligibly, just enough where they go, this is harder to breathe, and they go back to walking next to you because there's no choking. No dog chokes to death on a choke chain. They just go, I don't like that. That's what you want to communicate to your child. So you might, for example, here's another example of an immediate consequence. As soon as he does the attitude thing, you just calmly as could be. The first time he will not know what you're doing. I promise you he'll know what you're doing the second time. You take one of those harnesses that you use when you're walking with kids in the mall, child harnesses, I'm pretty sure is what they're called, and you put him in the harness. And then he's sitting there in his seat and he refuses to get out of the car. Well, you tell him, you choose. You can get out of the car right now and go to preschool, or I will pull you out of the car, kicking, screaming, embarrassing yourself in front of everybody, but that's your choice, just like you would drag a dog or a cow. There is no anger. There can't be any, or it will become threatening and condescending, and now he will fight you more. Your attitude's huge. Well, just like so is his. Dad says, so I took his sister into preschool, and he was still in the car. See, now the kid's won. He's won the day. He's won the fight. And I went insane. This is Dad. Of course, because you didn't know how to love and teach and then follow it with immediate consequences. So you're going, everything I'm doing is failing. You felt out of control. So going insane, I'm just going to guess before we read farther, means that you decided to take control. Or give up and run away. Either one is a total loss. I got scared that he was still in the car unsupervised. Apparently, you thought he was right behind you when you took the sister in. I got scared I was going to be late for work. I just flat got scared. Yeah, it's what we do when we feel out of control. Nice example of truth telling, by the way, that you got scared instead of saying, he made me mad. Yeah, it's not true. You were lost, confused, frustrated, and it was going to affect you personally and your work. So you felt pain, inconvenience. That's immediately followed by fear. A good thing to see. And yeah, that doesn't work very well when you're dealing with a 4-year-old. Dad says, so I went out and yanked him out of the car. Yeah, see, we didn't have a planned harness thing. Just having the harness on, the first time a little, the second time the kid knows what's going to happen. Just by having the harness on, the kid is notified you are getting out of the car. But you jerked him out of the car. And if you jerked him out of the car, you were angry. Fact, every parent knows this. So what happened? Almost predictably, he fell and hit his knee. So now we have an already grouchy kid who's hit his knee on the curb. This is going to go well. I bullied him into the school, and he was, of course, shocking, crying, and miserable. This is great truth-telling on your part, the kind we all need to be doing with each other on the conference calls, on the Facebook site for the parenting training. The Facebook page is called Ridiculously Effective Parenting Training Group. I think. Is that right? Ridiculously Effective Parenting, period. That's what it's called, I am told. And I learned this without any serious consequences to myself. But in this interaction with Brian, you get a power struggle with a 4-year-old instead of doing what we're talking about here, immediate consequences, which never, ever works out. I mean, he's fallen, and once he's injured his knee, oh, now you're just a monster and you lose. It puts you at his level, and it turns out that he's way better at being a 4-year-old than you are. Who knew? Who knew that was a skill? But it is. Dad says, when he got into the school building, he was upset that he'd had no breakfast. Of course, now his knee hurts too. I picked him up and explained that he'd had no breakfast because he chose to whine instead of being responsible. Oh, you're so cute. You're reasoning with a 4-year-old. He chose to keep whining, of course. And didn't grab it. He didn't understand it. He didn't grab his breakfast that was in the car and didn't get out of the car. And I'm sure that was lost on a crying 4-year-old that I just poured my anger and frustration all over. I have found myself with less love and patience for all the children lately. Nice truth telling. I realize it's been going on longer than I want to admit to myself. I've been trying to go it alone. I have felt distance from Marie, my wife. I have not been responsible. I have not been trying to find the love I need. And as a result, I have none to give. So I've been a crummy father. Any help you can give me will be appreciated. Oh, bless you for being so honest. We can't give what we don't have. You must stay filled up or you lose, or you can't love your kids. And if you can't love your kids, there's no loving and teaching. That's over. Daily discussions with your wife where you're vulnerable like this. Read Real Love and Marriage together. That will connect the two of you like crazy. Get on the Real Love Parents Facebook page, the one that I just said that's called Ridiculously Effective Parenting. Talk to some of those people face to face on Skype. When you're on the Facebook page, you'll resonate with some people, get their contact information, and then talk to them on Skype. See their faces, hear their problems, hear their solutions. You share your solutions, but most important, you feel cared for by each other. That's way more important than the solutions. You get the love that both you and your child need. It is not a lot of work, not compared with your morning with the 4-year-old, which was a nightmare. It is a huge change in focus and perspective. But you're worth it, aren't you? And so are your children.